Wearing black shirts today. Ooh.
Oh, close. Mine is like dark gray.
Oh, is it dark gray? It looks black, but now I can kind of see. Yeah, it's
Dark gray, and I have a pocket in here because just so I can put something in there just in
I
case.
know. So, hi everyone.
Hello, Facebook. How's everybody doing? I don't know what it's like outside. I haven't looked since morning.
For me, it it looks cold. It's icy. There's a little snow, but it looks like it looks enchanting and like a wonderland because of all like the way the ice is on the tree branches and like it's hanging down almost like like an ornament on the tree, like we were talking about a little bit in our messages. Yeah, so it looks like a wonderland out there for me.
Nice. Well, I can't see much, so I can't really say anything about that right now. In the morning, it was nice, but it's Wednesday. It's Heal the Unicorn Podcast Day, and let me click record. And here we go. Welcome, everybody, to Heal the Unicorn Podcast with myself, Yana Kasperczak, and Bethany Briggs. So today's topic is on what is shadow work. I wanted to have a discussion on this topic because there are some misconceptions about what it actually is, and some people automatically assume that shadow work is bad, is negative. It's the dabbling with the dark side, the the witchery, the darkness, because it's shadow, when it's not that at all. It's really you working on your own shadow. We all have a shadow, whether you're standing in the light and you have a shadow behind you, or in the sun, the shadow behind you, or in the dark, it's going to be your own shadow. And what is your own shadow? It is your past. It is your programming. It is your subconscious mind as of today. And what that's essentially what shadow work is. And Bethany, what would you add to what is shadow work at this point?
So what shadow work, I would say it's getting in touch with the parts of yourself that you've repressed or that you're putting off. It's that side of you that maybe it's like those limited beliefs. It's the assumptions, interpretations of things. It's triggers and traumas. But your shadow is also very important. So I like to have like a balance of like my shadow side and my light side, because that's when I find I have my most balance and my most equilibrium. Because without the shadow side, you don't have the light side. So you have to have both in order to have that equilibrium, to have that balance. But it's pretty much like, that your unconscious side of things, the side that you're not thinking about every day, the stuff, like I said, you repress, you're putting off for a later time, and you keep putting it off. But yeah, so that's kind of
yeah. That's exactly what it is. And what happens is you're talking about the repressed side, the subconscious side. Is I'll explain it in a little bit of a different way of how I understand it. And as an example, you are a sensitive person, like I myself, a sensitive person that is born in a family that is, let's say, angry. My family wasn't angry. My family was calm, and laid back. But let's say you're a sensitive person, you're born in a family that is angry, and they do not accept your sensitivity. So then what happens is that your sensitivity will be repressed. You will repress your sensitivity, and it will come through in many other different ways in your life. It's not something that just goes away. You don't just become an angry person because you live in an angry environment. when you are meant to be a sensitive person. You do become more like them, but it's still your sensitivity comes through that anger. You can't fully hide it. So that becomes now your shadow work, because when we start doing shadow work on ourselves, it doesn't just happen like you're living a normal life, everything is great and dandy, and then you wake up and it's like, oh, I am going to do this shadow work today. That's not how it happens. What happens is you go through the awakening process, and through the awakening process, you continue to awaken, spiritual awakening, and which basically means you go through a lot of pain and suffering. That is the awakening process. And you continue to go through the spiritual awakening every so often. For some, initially might be every single day, and then later it becomes less and less and less. And the more you try to avoid doing the work, the more painful your daily experiences will become. And over a prolonged period of time, that becomes depression, that becomes anxiety, that becomes panic attacks, that becomes mental health disorders, so to speak, where you are not yourself, because you don't even know who yourself is, because over your lifetime you have repressed certain parts of yourself. Now the same thing goes for if you were meant to be an angry person, you were born in a sensitive family, that anger will come through, and that will come through in the shadow. In your shadow, as you start doing the work, you will have these realizations, these what I like to call them, these projects that you can now work on, where you realize, holy shit, I am a mean bitch. And I didn't even know I was, because I thought I was being nice and sensitive and polite, but it comes through as that mean person, because people around you, they will tell you who you are, but very few people will actually pause and say, okay, so you're telling me this is who I am. I didn't know I was that way. So for me, I thought I was a very positive person, outgoing and outspoken. And I was constantly being told that, stop being so negative, stop being so negative. And I'm just like, I'm not being negative. It's because, I'm a positive person. But then when I started doing the shadow work, I realized that it was the programming that I was raised with. There was negativity because it comes through in the language, and not only raised with in my own home, but that negative language is in it's in every conversation. It's just how all of us were raised in a negative mindset, and beating down on ourselves and expecting so much of ourselves with a limited amount of time that we all have. So shadow work is that stuff that we have suppressed, that we are carrying. It is also traumas that you have gone through. It is anything and everything that is coming up that now it becomes a project, as it should. Like a project is something like why I call it a project is because this is not something that you're just going to do a few times and it's done.
Right.
And it's something that you're going to be doing on a constant basis, until it is healed, until it is released. And it needs to be a minimum of a 3-month project that you set for yourself. And at each checkpoint, you got to have checkpoints and measures of success of how you're going to measure your success in week 1, week 2, week 3, month 1, month 2, month 3. And it needs to be very, very, very tiny. Like, I kid you not, needs to, and it's different for everyone depending on what project you have uncovered that now you're going to be working on. And also keeping in mind that not all of them would be meant for you to be working on for 3 months. Right. It all depends on what comes up for you, right? Mm-hmm. And if it's something that you have recognized that, like I said, for me, I'm like, oh shit, I didn't know I was a negative person. And not everybody, but people close to me would tell me that I'm being negative. And that started playing in my mind, I'm a negative person. Well, let me see how true that is really. So I came up with something that worked for me. And that was just taking a pen, and every time I caught my negative thought, I would write it down on my hand, just a line on my hand, and consciously try to catch those thoughts. Right, cat and mouse game, which is really
Yeah,
fun,
I like
and
that.
tracking it down to see how many times I caught myself thinking negatively in an hour or in a day, right? And just to
Yeah.
see lines, and at one point my hand was, pretty colored in, um, that I realized something needed to change. And this project is ongoing. And I
Yeah.
started this in my late 20s, right? So since my late 20s, and today I'm 35, I'll be 36 soon. Numbers are just numbers, they mean nothing. Um, to some people, they mean something. To me, the age is how old I
Yeah.
am. It's just a number that I don't define myself by that. Because some days I might feel like I'm 50 years old because I feel like crap, and other days I feel like I'm a 12-year-old. But anyways, so I lost my train of thought now, where I was going with this. What's up?
Yeah, they'll come back to you.
Yeah.
Something I wanted to mention, because earlier I was saying how like you can't have the shadow side without the light side. You got to have like a good balance. And in a way, I like to think about shadows. I like to reframe and rewire as much as possible when this shadow stuff comes up.
Yeah.
And so a way that helps me bring the shadow work into a more positive light is to think about the shadow, like the darkness, as a mystery, an unknown. And I know some people are afraid of the unknown, but there's this person, her name is Teal Swan, and she has amazing information. But she mentioned in one of the videos I was watching about how the unknown is nothing, because you don't know what the unknown is. So like, why be so afraid of the unknown when you could use the unknown to catapult you to greatness? But anyways, so like the darkness is like a mystery. It's unknown. It's contraction. It's your internal focus, as we were saying, with going digging deep into the shadow work. It's what time to conserve your energy as well, so you can work on those deep, repressed thoughts, traumas, triggers, beliefs, whatever it's for you, because everyone has different shadow side. We all go through different things. So some of them might be similar with some people, but it's going to be like the main ideas might be the same, but how to heal from it and release it, and then your thought process on it is going to be different. And it's also like your vision side of things, your dream side, your being side as well. And it's weird to think that with like your shadow dark side, because what you're saying, a lot of people put like a negative connotation to it. And thinking about it as, it's the time when you're being, it's the time when you're resting. It's because a lot of the times when I do shadow work, I'm not as active because I'm more active inside the mind instead of like physically active. Now switching over to the light side so we can have a comparison. So with light, it's you're taking action. So you're taking that darkness, and now you're taking that action to change it, to rewire, to heal and release. And so that's why I said there's like that balance between the two. It's an increase in energy. It's your growth. It's a external focus. It's your expression, your expansion. And so when we put these two together, it's like a cycle. It's like the cycle of like how shadow and light works together as well. And it was really exciting because all of it's all about energy. It's like how we use our energy, energy and motion. That's pretty much what the shadow and light side are. And I like to have a balance between them, like I was saying, because I couldn't find my light side without going into that darkness, without going into that shadow and changing what I didn't like, what was there. I have an example I wanted to share with you guys. So a little story time. So this is like with shadow work, your negative thoughts, your beliefs, and all the traumas and the triggers. So the example I'm going to use is so in my house, I had a water pipe. It broke. Now, I'm not sure how long this was going on for, but I have a feeling it was slowly breaking over time. And I just kept putting it off. I kept repressing it. Oh, it's fine. It's just a pan rattling. That's why it's making that sound. It's fine. Nothing's wrong. And that's similar to when you're doing shadow work, or not doing the shadow work because you're repressing it. You're like, oh no, it's fine. It's fine. It will go away on its own. I'm not going to worry about it. But the minute I kept putting it off, then Monday we had that pipe break completely. And it was gushing water into my crawl space. And I was just like, oh my gosh, overwhelmed, panicky, like, what do you do? And when you repress your shadow side, you're going to feel the same way. And when you go to it, because it's going to be like, there's going to be all that overwhelm. It's going to have that explosion of like, woo, like, here it is. And so my advice with doing a shadow work is to really take one thing at a time. Like you were saying, Yana, with, like, having it like a 3-month project, or do one project at a time, because each shadow thought or belief or assumption, trigger, trauma, it's going to have its own process to heal and release. And like in my example, my story, when you're putting that off, it's just going to get to a point of explosion, and that's when your life is going to feel more depressed. The anxiety is going to hit. You're going to feel burnt out, overwhelmed, because you're not focusing on that when it happened. So the best thing to do is, when you have a trauma or trigger that happens, work on it then. Don't repress it. Work on it when it happens. I know sometimes it's easier said than done, but starting one thing at a time and going slow and steady can really help in the whole shadow work process.
Mm-hmm. It totally can. And it's like slow, steady wins the race. Mm-hmm. It's okay. We're all supposed to be turtles in that race. We've all heard this, this example of the turtle and the rabbit racing, and the rabbit is hopping around. It's like, ha ha ha, you're so slow, ha ha. And the turtle just keeps going and going and going. Yeah. Rabbit nap and all that stuff, and then wakes up and realizes, oh shit, I gotta go. And by the time the rabbit gets there, the turtle has already won the race. Right. So the same thing with shadow work. Now, I've written some things down that popped up for me, and here is, we'll use this example. We'll start from where I kind of finished and then go a little bit backwards. So the shadow work, this is how I want you to kind of think about it, is you were born to be a certain individual, that you are not that individual today. And how would you know? Is because you feel that you're not. You sense that you're not, that you are not yourself. How? Because you're not happy. You're sad, depressed, you're angry, you're frustrated. You're not in your prime state. Mm-hmm. And those things that help you to feel in the prime state, they are huge key points for you, the beacons to lean on and move towards, that will help you to identify more of who you are. So what your job is in this world, in your life, is to work on that gap, on who you were born to be. So which means uncover who you were born to be, who you were meant to be. That's something you got to put together yourself, or at least have an idea about it. And feelings and emotions are a huge part of that, right? Thoughts in there as well. Like, what is your thought process? Because that will determine what your feelings and emotions will be. Because where you are now, your thought process is not where you want to be. And your thoughts determine who you are. and at the same time help you to understand more of who you want to be instead of who you are being. So that's why it's very important to uncover what that gap is. Those would be the mini projects that you can work on. And like as an example, again, for me, it was uncover the negativity and going back to, each project and what it means is that you don't have to keep going and focus on that project, because essentially what I would like you to look at, the way I want you to look at these projects is another way to call them is habits.
That's a good
Right?
point. Yeah.
So call them habits. I call them projects because it's funner. It's like, ooh, we're going to be working on a science project. And I like to call it, I don't know if you guys watched Disenchantment, but in there, she meets a scientist and she calls it science, not science, but science with a T. So right away for me, like I need to have some like memorable humor that means something to me and make it more enticing, more fun to do and approach. So when I call it a science project, I instantly feel like a kid and I want to go and experiment. Now, the experiment is myself. How do I create a habit of positivity? And it's not just outwardly, it's internally, because a lot of us, and I was that person, I was a lot of those of you that might not be recognizing that you are actually negative instead of when you're trying to be positive, is in the language that is used. There are certain words that are negative words that create a negative feeling in other people, and response, if you will, and that's where the work happens. So, and each one of those, what are they? Your habits, and that's, I don't know what else and what I wrote down. I think that's the goal. Oh yeah, that's what I wrote down. So that's the goal. That the goal is for each of these projects to become a habit. So that becomes the goal. The goal becomes the habit, and for you to not look at it as this is, oh my god, like if I look at it as, oh my god, I gotta do this for the rest of my life, I don't want to do this. I don't want to pay attention to my negative language for the rest of my life. Like, oh my god, are you kidding me? No way. Because it's like I already have so many things to do. Why would I add more on my daily to-do list, right? So this is where negativity, hopefully you guys picked up on that. There's negativity, there's frustration, there's anger in there, and there's a lot of doubt and a lot of judgment that this is not something I can be able to do as easy as it is to breathe. But it does become that way because that's how habits are. So that's why each of these projects, the goal should be for it to become a habit. So finding different fun ways how to incorporate that into your life. And when you, Bethany, you were talking about the unknown. So what I wrote down for that is that every human being, we're all scared of the unknown. It's just, you see a dark cave in front of you, you're instantly fearful of the unknown. That's how life feels like for the majority of the people, as if you were standing in front of this black cave and you cannot see inside of it. So I want you to think about it a little bit differently, where this cave called life that looks pitch black, if you close your eyes and you visualize beautiful things inside that cave, you will get to experience those beautiful things, and you will get to then create whatever it is that you want inside that cave. And that is the future. That is the unknown. So if you take time every day, because that's one of the habits that I've been building and working on, taking time every day to create a certain vision of the future that I want, where I feel on that specific day that I need to, because there's some shit is creeping up. That's the best way I describe it. It's like something is creeping up and I'm not feeling so great about it. So I need to spend time with this. So it could be anxiety as a feeling or an emotion. It could be me not drinking enough water. So finding different ways of how to incorporate that in there. And then you were talking about the cycles. So as we're talking about the cycles, Ethan, can I help you, sweetie?
Milot, she said this before us. She's talking to her friends and she said, oh, and I said, oh, didn't you work? She's like, no. And she comes in here talking to her friends on her tablet, getting the granola bar.
You know, with what you were saying about, feeling your feelings and digging deep, I feel like that is one of the best things to do with shadow work. And I had a habit before of being straight to the negative. And I had that same thing happen to me where people would be like, oh, you're so negative. And I'd be like, what do you mean? Like, no, I'm not. And it took me time to get to the point where I realized, yes, I was negative. And then I put it into the habit of reframing and rewiring it to what I want, to what I'm desiring, to what feels good for me. Because keeping track of that shadow talk, because what I'll do is I'll be like, I feel it and I'm like, hey, I see you, I hear you, what's going on, what's happening, let's dig deep right now. And that's kind of like a prompt that you could do for yourself as well, for anyone listening that's like, well, how do I reframe and rewire? Like, how do I get to that point? And it's really digging deep, feeling your feelings and asking yourself, like, how are you feeling? And not repressing it and shoving it down to the point where it's just like, hey, I'm here. I'm right here. And I'm going to show you that I'm here. I'm going to show others that I'm here.
And the only way to actually, anyone that is not here cannot say that I'm here. And those that are here, they're feeling and experiencing a lot. That's what makes us human. That's what makes us unique. And those feelings and emotions that we do suppress, like you're talking about, because somebody told us that it's not okay to experience them, that it's, that this is not normal, this is not okay. Whereas it is very much okay. And when you're feeling and experience something, that you are actually supposed to sit with that and understand what is going on, because that's your spiritual awakening. That's your downloading. That's your spiritual awakening. There's different ways how we like to explain what it is, but in today's video I'll explain it in the way of you're feeling a lot of pain and suffering, and in those times you are receiving information, whether you are aware of it or not. Many people block that information because they're just focusing on the pain and the suffering itself, right? The pain is inevitable, but too many people focus on the suffering and forget that suffering is actually optional. We all feel the pain. When we lose a loved one, we're going to feel pain. We're going to feel pain. Losing someone you love and care about causes people pain. We cannot avoid pain, but we can choose not to suffer, not to allow that pain to break us down and debilitate us essentially, and to use that as fuel, as motivation, as inspiration. Do something with it, because when we are experiencing pain, those are the time that we uncover lessons, gifts, more of who we want to be perhaps as well. We uncover a lot, and very few people actually do something with it. Right. And that's okay. Not everybody's meant to, right? Not, or at least not in this lifetime. That's okay, right? Some of us are more in the phase where we're just learning and learning and learning and not doing anything. The doing might come. So if that's where you're at, if you're just consuming information, and you're not applying, you're not doing anything with it, don't beat yourself up, because you're probably consuming way too much information that you can't even output, that you can't even try to put to practice. But whatever you're consuming, just pick one thing that you want to stick to. It's like that project, right? That you want to, acquire, the skill you want to acquire for yourself, the skill of being positive. I don't know, for you, it might be more even communication skill. That's one of the skills that I continue to work on. And that's a skill that all of us continue to work on from the day we're born. So what I was starting to talk about is the cycles where, and we all go through these cycles. Like, it could be very intense and it could be very mild, but we all go through these cycles, and they are fairly similar, but yet a little bit different. You got to figure out what your cycle is, because your cycle might be around the weather, around the moon, around no, there's many other ones. So
like the sun, a plant cycle,
Yeah.
like how a plant grows.
Your own body, especially as a female, males as well, they have their own cycles. So your goal could be right now is to identify your cycle. And the cycle that I'm talking about, that Bethany started talking about, is this kind of like where you are suffering, right? Which is your spiritual awakening, where you're in this bubble, and then you go into the shadow work, where you are allowing the lessons in. You're maybe picking one or two that you want to work on, and you're diving deeper into them. That's the work that you'll be doing. Just because you decided, oh, I'm going to be working on my positivity, and you do nothing about it, you're not working on your positivity. You got to decide what does this work actually mean to you? What does it look like? Are you going to be just doing it simple like I did with writing it down on your hand? Or are you going to be going even deeper in and finding mentors in different places that are all about positivity and learning from them? Even those that irritate you, they can teach you some lessons, because if they irritate you, that means that there's part of you that you are not comfortable with and you're irritated about, and you get to see it in them. That's how we are. Like, we see ourselves in other people, which will help you to go back to that, working on that gap of who you are versus who you were meant to be. And now back to the cycle. So spiritual awakening, shadow work, healing and recovering, very important. And this is a time where you do what works for you, right? Whether it's, crying all day, which I don't recommend, because then eventually that can become more of your programming. So the things that I do want you to focus on are those that feel good, that feel awesome. Like, if it's crying, then I want you to tie it in with something that is going to allow you to release and cry for just a little bit, and afterwards you have no way but you feel great and happy about. So one of the first thing that popped into my mind, as give me an example of what could that be. Simple. And this can be really intimidating for many of you, but I encourage you to try. Go look in the mirror, in your own eyes. Look in the eyes and say to yourself, I am lovable. I am beautiful. And I am magnificent. I am wise. I am wisdom. Say nice things to yourself as you're smiling. Because guaranteed, the first time you do this, like I said, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's normal, right? Because we're told to look elsewhere for things, right, and not within. We're looking for love and validation of love outside of ourselves instead of within ourselves, and not giving it to ourselves. And there's going to be tears, all of that. But if you're smiling, you cannot help but smile. Another exercise is, you feeling like crap, pretend to laugh. Just pretend to laugh, and eventually you will laugh. By doing those kind of exercises. Dancing is another way. Find your favorite music, turn it on, headphones, speakers, whatever you want. Maybe hold your phone and sing into your phone, whatever you want to do, have fun with it. But listen to music that energizes you, that if you feel like crap and you know you're gonna cry, release it. But then I'm telling you, because music is there and it's the one that speaks to your soul, you're going to feel great and you're gonna move past it. So that's the healing part. You got to give yourself that time. It might be just meditation. It might be walks outside, and it might be different every single day and every single time, but making sure you're spending time in that healing part. And when you are doing the work, when you go through the spiritual awakening and you do the shadow work, the healing might be a couple of days, it might be a couple of weeks. You got to give yourself that time and know what works for you. And then what's going to feel is you're going to feel like you're on top of the world, that you got this, that you are standing on top of Mount Everest and screaming, nobody hears, and you're back down on spiritual awakening and then shadow work and healing, right? So this is the circle that we all go through. I know there's probably some other ones that I could add in there, and some people might say missing, but these are just the basics, the really loud screaming milestones, if you will, of when you're going through spiritual awakening. And part of that is doing the shadow work.
Oh yeah, I agree. And I wanted to, because I loved all of like the healing side that you were mentioning. All of that is beautiful, and it works amazingly from my personal experience. But another one is journaling, and I have some prompts. I will share these prompts in the group as well, so everyone can see it written out. But I have some shadow work prompts that would help with journaling, because for me, I find when I'm doing shadow work, I like to journal it out so I can write it out, and it helps me process everything. And then also I can go back and see my growth. And on those times where I'm feeling down and I'm like, nothing's working, I can go back and be like, oh, but look where I came from. I have been healing. I have been growing from it. And so I find that the journaling through it all, and there's so many different forms of journaling you can do, like video journaling, like you, Yana, like to do. You like to do the video vlogs. I like to write it out in a journal, or you could have a voice clip that you send to your own like messenger on Facebook of like doing this like journaling, or whatever floats your boat, whatever you feel comfortable with journaling. But so there's 10 in here. I don't know if I'm going to say them all, but maybe if I could say them quickly. So the first one is, what is a negative feeling you have, and what has been triggering this negative feeling? So kind of like what I mentioned earlier, like letting yourself be known that you're heard and seen, and asking what's going on, what's coming, where's this coming from? How long has it been since you've had this feeling? How long have you been harboring this feeling? Why do you feel it is negative? Like, because maybe you're feeling it's negative, but when you really think about it, maybe it's not negative, and maybe it's there, like you're saying, Yana, to help catapult you, to help you use it as fuel for something else, for something you're going to create, or for you to find who you are. And if you're not, you don't have that, like, you're not going to get to that place, and what have you not forgiven for yourself? What are you holding on to? So what have you not released? Why is it difficult for you to forgive yourself at this moment? When was the last time someone triggered you? Can you see that aspect of yourself in that person? This one, what do you think is the worst trait of yourself? That one can be hard to do, but you may find that worst trait is actually a really good trait.
Yeah.
So you might surprise yourself. And then ask yourself, why do you feel is it bad? Same thing. Why do you feel like it's negative? Just a different wording. And does this trait bring any positive aspects with it? Like I was mentioning already, is there that positive, is that silver lining to help you grow and expand? And then a big one is thinking back to your childhood. Is there a situation that happened that made you feel the way you're feeling now, and that you repressed and you didn't work through, like we mentioned way way earlier. And then a good thing to do with this working on your child, your inner child, is to write a letter to your child self, explaining what happened in detail and forgiving yourself and letting your child side know that you're heard and you're seen and that you're loved. Just really showing that love and empathy to your child side, which I've done, and it has helped me tremendously with my shadow work. I've so many things that were on the shadow side that ended up going to the light side too, because it was something that helped both aspects. Came from childhood, and I was able to reframe, rewire, and work through it all. And then it helped me find who I am. And I'm continuing to do shadow work. Like, I feel like you have that one, like that, well, okay, your shadow work. And then there's all these like different, you know, like on those charts that you have like the circle in the middle, and then you have like all the lines and those circles. And then off those, you have those circles. Well, that's how shadow work is. You know, you get that one aspect and then a new aspect comes up. That's what I found. And then you work on that part and then it moves on to something else. And you're kind of, it's like a puzzle you're putting together.
It's all connected. Yeah.
Yeah. There's that connection there.
Yeah. And it's very true. Like everything that we are doing, it's like you do one thing and then the next thing comes up and the next thing. And this is the moment that I want everyone to listen to. Remember that you cannot whack all of these whack-a-moles that are coming up for you to work on at the same time. You got to pick one. And how do you pick it? You decide. Whichever one feels the closest to its highest potential is the one that I always highly recommend. Because if it's like, if we're going to use numbers in determining like how successful do you feel with this particular thing that you want to work on. So we'll use my example as an example, negativity, which we'll get into as well of after what Bethany said. But this example of negativity on a scale of 1 to 10, for me, it was like, I felt like I was on an 8 to a 10. And 1 being like really, really negative and 10 being positive, that I was like, I'm on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm an 8. And then there's other things that, for example, am I a great mom? For me, that was like a 5 or a 4. So I did not want to focus on working on that, even though many people will be like, well, wouldn't you want to be a better mom? Why wouldn't you want to work on being a better mom instead of you focus on the negativity? Well, here's the thing. Everything is connected. Let me focus on my negativity. I will automatically become a better mom. So my scale has moved from, you know, being a 4, shitty mom, to an 8, being a good mom, to now working on it and moving it to a 10, which I feel like as a parent, it's kind of hard to determine, but my determining point is once they're married and have kids, that they have found great partners for them, not based on my judgment of what a great partner I think would be for them, but that they are happy with. That would be my determining point of my success. So it's like seeing, now I'm like, what were we talking about? See, the mind just goes to a different to a different zone. It's like, oh, let's talk about this now. Let's talk about this, like ping ponging. But everything has its like everything's connected. That's what we're talking about. Everything has a purpose, and everything that we can kind of like we're talking about like. Anyways, I'll remember what it is, because I know it's connected to the next thing that I want to say is that my experience of my negativity, me being negative, gave me an experience, like a first-hand experience, what it's like to be a negative person while believing I am positive. And because on that scale of 1 to 10, I was at an 8. I decided that that's what I'm going to focus on. So I jumped to kind of like the opposite side, where I was extremely optimistic, where my friends were telling me, oh my God, I can't deal with you. You're way too optimistic. Like, I can't handle you. Not everything is sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns, Yana, right? So kind of went from negative to like extremely positive, and also didn't happen overnight.
Right.
Like, it didn't happen overnight, that I didn't just wake up and became like all this like sickly positive person. And then taking that back, it's like, well, it's like, oh my God, either way I go, and this is a negativity, right? Level 1, either way I go, actually, this is more like level 2, where I'm like a fighter. I can't win, because if I go and I'm very like myself when I'm trying to be positive and people think I'm negative, then I go and I'm positive and they're telling me that I'm like sickly positive, that tame me down. Like I can't win. So then I gotta allow the rationalizer come in and help me rationalize. Okay, well, if I am being told that I'm extreme in this end and extreme at this end, I gotta go a little bit deeper in this subject, in this project, in this habit of mine, because it is a habit of being negative. Nobody's born negative. It's a habit that developed over a lifetime. So now I gotta uncover and go deeper into this habit, and it's multi-layered and a lot of things are attached in there, and I go down into this rabbit hole that brings me into today, right? And do I still have negative language? Yes, I do. I do, every single day. But the difference is of myself, my difference in me is, 5 years ago to now, is that I'm so hyperly aware of my language that I reframe it, I rephrase it, and I make it into a powerful language. And then, Bethany, you were talking about the child, writing a letter to a child. Inner child work is so powerful. Those of you that are curious in that, go into that rabbit hole, right? For me, it was the positivity and the mindset, the negative mindset. They're not enough, they're not good enough, I can't do this, just because this person got to that level of success, I can't do that. So it's very limiting. Different beliefs and different things. Our belief systems, our limiting beliefs are built. We were talking about it last week.
Yeah.
Or a week before. So check out the other video that Bethany and I did about limiting beliefs. And those are formed throughout our lifetime, those that we start to believe and take on and as our own, but they weren't our own. Now, with the child self, I've visited her in my visualizations and my meditations, and I've cried and I've released a lot. Just going and sitting down with your child self, there's something magical about it. The ability, all of us have this ability to sit down and literally just hug her or him, just to be able to do that. And maybe share a piece of advice, maybe share what you're going through right now, the shadow work that you're working on right now. Maybe you've become aware of something in the midst of your spiritual awakening, right? Because the spiritual awakening is where you get the knowledge, and then shadow work is you're doing the work, and then healing is you're now healing through the work you've done. It's like you overexerted your body. You go to the gym, you can't expect to function as your full self if you don't take the time to recover, if you don't take the time to heal. So going and talking to her, doing the letter, like you said, Bethany, like that one is powerful as well. If like another thing, I know some people, like including myself, that it's like, how do I put the best way to put it? It's like the first time I sat with my child self, it felt so powerful, and it was an incredible experience. And then the second time and the third time, it wasn't as powerful. So it's like, well, I want to experience it that same way. So it's like, how do I go back and use that magic? Mm-hmm. And I'll use this as a reminder that every experience is going to be different, even if you're doing the same thing. And if you want to tap into different part of using that magic, you can do it different ways, right? Mm-hmm. Use your creativity, like go nuts of how or what that looks like to you. But talking to your child self, dancing with your child self, whether it's through visualization, whether it's you're imagining you're seeing your child self or looking at the picture. Those are the only ones that popped into my mind right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that, like this is just, again, crash course. Everything that we do is like,
Right.
I kid you not, this is the information that people pay for thousands of dollars. And like, I'm serious, a lot of people pay thousands of dollars for the information that Bethany and I bring to you guys. So it is so valuable that it's invaluable. But it's
Yeah.
only valuable if you actually do something with it. And if you don't, then it has absolutely no value.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was writing out right now what you're saying with like the cycle, and I just thought that was really cool how you connected that with like the dark light cycle that I was telling you about. So I was just kind of writing that out, and in a way I came up with like a different way to I mean, it's the same way to think about it, but I guess different wording. So I kind of wanted to share that. So like we have our spiritual awakening, that's that cycle. And then so the first part is that shadow work, and then it's going into working through it and digging deep, feeling the feelings, and then you got healing and recovery, and then you got that feeling on top of the world like you were saying, and that growth and expansion, and then you go back to that shadow work, and then like it's that ongoing cycle. It's just, yeah, I've been into cycles a lot more lately, so this was like, whoo, I love the way that looks.
Well, because everything is a
Yeah.
cycle. Like our day, 24-hour cycle, 24-hour period. So everything is a cycle. Everything is essentially a routine as well. And another thing I'll mention, since I mentioned routines, is if you don't have an established routine for your morning, how you're going to start your morning in incorporating your self-love and your self-care into your morning routine, then you need to have it, because otherwise you wake up and you start giving and giving and giving and giving and giving and giving to everyone. And by the end of the day, you will have nothing left for yourself. So that's why you got to start your day with giving to yourself, whatever that means to you. It could be 10, 15 minutes on the toilet or on the throne, as I like to call it, with your phone or the headphones with no one to disturb you. And if that means waking up 10, 15 minutes earlier, then you make sure that you have that. If it means journaling, or visualizing or meditating or exercising or stretching or whatever it means to you, or going for a walk, maybe even just brushing your hair or your teeth or soaking in the bath, like the list is unlimited. Why? It's because everyone has their own thing that they enjoy doing, that they like doing, that makes them feel worthy. And those are the things that I want you to incorporate in your morning. And I'm not going to pressure everyone, but meditation is incredibly powerful. And especially when you do it in the morning.
I agree.
And for a lot of people, it's the hardest time to do it. For me, meditation in the morning was the hardest thing to do, because this is where my monkey mind is the loudest and it's the craziest. And if you haven't heard of the monkey mind, it's just to-do lists and thoughts and ideas and a lot of different things just popping into mind, and shoulds and have tos, and I'm not good enough, a bunch of different things that really don't matter at the end of the day. Like even, pay the bill, that goes on the to-do list. And even though it does matter in the long run, but in the present moment, it doesn't matter, because you don't need to worry about that bill. You're going to pay it later. Right? So that's the monkey mind that tells you all these things that you got to do. So release, let it go, bring yourself back to the present. And it's difficult, but the more you practice the art of sitting still with yourself, the easier it will become. In the beginning, it just might be a couple of minutes, and just work your way up. As you start to really feel the benefits of meditation when you do it 15 minutes like a 15 minute meditation, that's when you start to get into deeper meditation. But more practiced meditators, they're able to get into the deeper states like this.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely. It used to be hard for me, and my mind would keep going, but now I like will sit in that stillness and silence for a lot longer. And what I like to do, so when I am in that meditative state and my mind wanders, I count it as a repetition. It's like, okay, this is that first repetition. And then I pin that thought. I'll be like, okay, we're going to pin this for later. Not right now. And then I go to the second repetition, and I notice the length of my repetitions grow longer and longer with that pinning aspect. But like doing it as it's like a repetition when you're working out, you're doing your curls and it's like 1, 2. Well, if you do that with meditation, you're going to get the same results, and you're going to be able to do it for longer and longer.
So give me an example of what that would look like, because I'm trying to understand what you mean by repetition.
Okay, so let's say you're sitting there, you're meditating, and then I got to pay a bill comes into mind. Okay, pin that for later. I'm going to come back to that. All right, that was that repetition because you're meditating, and then you got that thought. Mm-hmm. And then you're closing that thought by, like pinning it for later. And then you're starting over again in a clearer mind without that thought there. So there's that second repetition. And then you're riding that wave. And then let's say another thought comes to mind. What are we going to have for dinner? Okay, pin that for later. All right, now we're on to the third repetition. And because the thoughts coming into your mind is natural and it happens. And I've heard some people that teach meditation be like, well, if you're meditating in stillness and silence and all of a sudden that thought comes to mind, you're doing it right. And that's weird to say, but it does show that you're getting to that place and your mind is just working how it's learned to work, I guess. So what you're teaching yourself is going to show in your meditation as well.
Because the biggest part of meditation is becoming aware of your inner dialogue. That's what part of meditation is. And that's why when you said that if your thoughts are coming through, which means that you're actually aware of your thoughts, then you're doing it right. Because the whole point of meditation is to bring awareness to oneself, to bring out the subconscious into the conscious mind and become aware of it, and then get to choose what you want to do with it, right? You can do nothing about it and everything will stay the same, or you can choose to do something about it, right? So my other question for you is with, there are people, including myself, that have an anxiety around forgetting things. So pinning things for later can cause me to feel anxious that I'm going to forget it. So what are your tips, suggestions, or thoughts or tricks on how to deal with those fearful moments of, oh my God, I'm going to forget, and this is like important because I'm going to die if I don't do it?
My advice for that is to see where your breath is. Kind of get it focused into your breath. So am I breathing from my chest? Because if I'm breathing from my chest in that moment of like, oh, I'm going to forget this with that anxiety, then that's where that anxiety is coming from as well, because you're not having those full deep breaths. So it might not even be like with the thought process. It might just be how you're breathing and how your body is. But when you have those thoughts and you're like, and that anxiety comes up, is just to do deep belly breaths, refocus on the breath work. And then, that thought will come back to you. It comes back to me afterwards every time. And it's like, oh yeah, this is what it was. But when you're meditating, you're in your present moment. And it's like that one time you have for yourself where you don't have to have, like you're saying, the monkey mind, like going all over the place. It's that one time where you're allowing yourself to be still and silent. And with that repetitions, like I was telling you, it gets easier. But when that anxiety hits, going to your breath, going to the deep belly breaths, and even repeating to yourself, like inhale, exhale, having a mantra in mind or like an affirmation that's going to help you feel like on top of the world and not so much on that other side. And I mean, if it helps you at that moment to like stop and do like some inner work while you're meditating, like, okay, I see you and I feel you, anxiety, can we pin this for later? You know, maybe like talking to yourself through it, like we're meditating right now, we're in this present moment, let's be here now. And I've done that before as well. And it really helped me focus back into what I was doing, into the meditation.
Yeah. And breath work is, I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of the times when we are feeling off, it's our breath that has changed and we are not consciously aware of our breath. So now we got to relearn to become consciously aware of our breath, so we can now consciously choose how to breathe. I'll give you an example of my journey with my breath, and I can pretty much guarantee many people will relate to this. Anxiety is something that all of us deal with nowadays, even more so than ever before. And when I started paying attention to my breath, I very quickly, like this, the moment I started paying attention, I quickly realized why I was anxious. Because those people that are very anxious or feel a lot of anxiety, they have shallow breath. It's not a deep breath into the chest, or even better into the belly. And often many people find the deep breath into the belly painful because of their posture, because they're so used to breathing in a certain way. So when you change your breath work, you are going to potentially experience a little bit of discomfort because of your posture, because you have a certain posture based on your breath right now. And in order for you to take bigger breaths, you got to expand more. So those that are more hunched and closed, it will be more like body language as well. So this is where you close and you're like anxious and you're tight and you're restricted. So that's why I'm glad you brought up breath work. And now in meditation, when we are in meditation, the best way how I can describe what a great meditation feels like is when you feel like you are on vacation. Because when you're on vacation, you have the same thoughts, the same list, the same things come to mind. But the difference is how you respond or react to them. Or perhaps maybe you choose to just like pin them. And it's like, oh, I'll deal with it when I get home. Because right now I'm on vacation. So a meditation is a mini vacation where you get to get away from the real world and go to a vacation. And if it doesn't feel like a vacation, then you're doing it wrong. Right? But at the same time, you're not doing it wrong. You're probably just learning and adjusting and going through. There's no right or wrong way. I just say it to kind of trigger.
Right. Yeah, because there's so many ways you can meditate, and it's like,
and there's no right or wrong way. But at the end of it, it's not going to feel like a vacation when you just start meditating. So that's why it's going to feel like you're doing it wrong, because, oh my God, I'm supposed to feel like I'm on vacation and I don't. I feel like I on this scary train that is going at very high speeds, and there's nothing inside around, and I don't even see the trail, and it looks like it's about to fly off because it looks like the trails or the tracks. And that's okay. That's part of the process, because in that moment, like it's boredom as well, and that's why a lot of people busy themselves so they don't have to deal with what's going on the inside, and learn more of who they are and who they want to be. And so with those thoughts that come to mind, you use that reminder. This is meant to be like a vacation. So these thoughts will come back to me. Or another way of looking at it, it's like we often use this in a relationship where somebody, if I can't remember exactly how it goes, but if you love them, set them free. If they come back to you, they're meant for you, and if not, they will never
Yeah.
yours. So the same thing with thoughts, with anything that we experience, that if we're meant to, set it free, which means stop trying to choke it and hold on to it and say it's mine, it's mine, it's mine, I want it. Just trust that it's yours. Release that desire. I'll use that word because desire can often cause us a lot of pain when we attach so much desire to something that we want. So releasing a little bit of that desire and knowing that it's going to be yours because you've already planted the seed, and trusting that it's going to come back to you if it's meant to be, right? Whether it's a thought or an idea or whatever it is while you're on this vacation mode, trust in the process. And if it doesn't come back to you, then that's okay. But one of the things some people, like I know I did this in the beginning, is I just took notes with my eyes closed, writing it on a piece of paper, making sure it's a blank piece of paper. And then afterwards, I don't even care to look at it. Because for me, it was just, I need to have it somewhere so I don't forget. And for me, it was just write it down to get it out of my mind. Whereas now I've practiced enough that thought comes in and I don't have to write it down, that it's just pinned, like you said. I'll leave it there. And if it comes back, or when it comes back.
Because it will. And it does every time. That's what I've noticed. Because I had that same thought, well, what if I forget about it? What if it doesn't come back to me? That was important. Well, was it really important? Because some of the thoughts that come on my mind are not as important as I think they are. And the important ones, they come back every single time. And after meditating, I find that they come back in a more growing and expanded way, and a way where I have more solutions, or this is what I'm going to do for it. An answer for that thought. Okay, well, this is what I'm going to do for it. So it putting it off sometimes will help you find a more creative way to do things. If this was a thought on your business, or what I want for dinner or something, you may find something that you didn't even think that you were wanting, but by putting it off, you took that time for yourself, and then you get rewarded. Yourself rewards yourself with an even more powerful thought that was along the same lines. Or it doesn't come back because it just wasn't important like you were thinking it was. Yeah.
Yeah, because what I'm hearing you say is that the thought or the idea can either expand or disappear, because some of them are actually not ours. They're not meant to be ours, which means that we're just meant to pass it through. And what does passing through means? It means not saying that it's mine. And if it comes up in conversation with someone, and what I mean by that comes up in conversation is you feel like you want to share this, you feel like you want to talk about it. That's what I mean. That when it comes up, your need to share this comes up, I want you to express it and not hold on to it and think, because a lot of people do this. I was one of those where it's oh my God, this is greed as well, by the way. This is greed of creativity. And the more you hoard creativity, the less you'll have. So when these ideas come up and you want to share them with people, you share them with that individual or in that video, whatever it is, right? So that's why I say these videos that Bethany and I do, a lot of people pay thousands of dollars for all this information, but we're not greedy here. We share these ideas, these thoughts, because then what happens is we get more and more and more of them, to a point where it forces a spiritual awakening, where it's fuck, there's so much, so many realizations, so many things to do, and we get into this cycle. And those of you that watch us regularly, guaranteed, you get to see and feel our cycles as well. Because it's 1 week we're really up, when we're on that high, on the peak, and then next week it's oh my God, so we're down here heavy, and the energy is low, and there's a lot of lessons that we're sharing, experiences that we're sharing, and then we go into, well, this is now the solutions, the problem solving, which is, you know, the the shadow work, and then going into now heal and recovering. So this is where we talk a lot of self-care, self-love, and back into the, oh my God, this is awesome, this is great, universe is awesome, trust, to like, oh my God, so much, I can't deal with it, I'm overwhelmed. Yeah. So anyways, as we're getting close to the end of our podcast today, shadow work is not as scary and as difficult as we make it out to be. It is uncomfortable, but it's very temporary. It's just for the moment, because the lesson, the aha moment comes fairly quickly after that. And that is where it's like, oh my God, you feel great. Because even in that moment when you are doing the shadow work, you have moments of like euphoria, right? Where you feel like, oh my God, this is great. Because you get these realizations, these projects, if you will, that are now on the surface, and it feels great. But then the realization of, shit, now I gotta do the work part of the shadow.
Right.
Shadows uncover, and then the work part is you gotta do the work, and it's like, oh, that's so much. I don't want to do it, but it's not that much. You are the one that gets to decide how much you are open to doing every single day. Not all of us have an hour to meditate every single day. Right?
Yeah. Like, the choice is yours. Definitely. Yes. I kind of interrupted you. I apologize about that.
Oh no, that was good, because I was about to say now a poem time, because Bethany pulls off with the poem.
Yeah, I was gonna say it, but then I was like, I don't know if I cut her off. So
no, I was like, we already, like, we know our own cycles, each other's cycles, where I end, and then you begin, and the conversation just flows. And I've been watching quite a few like podcast conversations where I hear both of them talking at the same time for a little bit here or there. And I don't know about you, but I feel like we don't do that very often.
No. And when that does happen, I find it, like in other podcasts, it's more distracting when we're talking. And when we first started the podcast, it was something that I had to work on, because I would do that, where you would be talking and then I would like start talking, but I had, and it took a while for me to learn how to do it. But now I feel like our flow, like you said, it's beautiful.
Same thing when I started doing them with I think it was just Rachel that I started doing.
Yeah, Rachel.
It was kind of like the same, but by that point, her and I, we've conversated quite a bit already. But there was still that adjustment period.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? And that's the difference between doing a podcast with someone for a while, because we get to know each other, and then doing a podcast with someone for the first time, right? Those voices will overlap. And either way, it's fine, right? Because we communicate and understand in both ways, and we do hear both voices at the same time, subconsciously, but consciously we hear one.
Right.
Yeah. The process. So anyways, give us your poem for today. And
alrighty. So I was going between two, but I think this one for today is on point. Balance is key. Learn to love all your parts and aspects. They make you, you. Not a fan of what you find? Start a new pattern or story. The choice is yours.
On point of what we were talking about. Don't like who you are? Change it. Because now you are hyperly or hyper aware of what you don't like about yourself. And like I mentioned earlier, and we both mentioned this in almost all of our podcasts that we do, is that interaction with other people the things that you don't like in other people are the same things that you have in you and chances are you might actually be using them as well, but you're not aware of it. Just like I wasn't aware of my negativity, and then just like I wasn't aware of my extreme positivity, that it's like the two polar opposites, and I had to find somewhere in between. And really, the between is read the room.
Yes. Yeah.
As simple as that. And I tell my kids all the time, read the room, read the energy of the room. If it's low, you coming in there with a lot of positivity ain't gonna do anything. It is just going to repel, because you gotta come in with like a magnet with the things that that person, those individuals will resonate with that they will understand. You gotta speak their language. So if they are negative, you gotta have negativity in your language, because that's how they speak, that's how they understand. So becoming a chameleon, which I'm still working on, because we're certain people, I'm just like, and that's okay as well, right? This is where boundaries, like with certain people, I'm just like, I am not becoming a chameleon, because I'm not doing any of that. I want no part of that. That's okay. Thank you. We are good. Why? Because we're it's not that we're two different other people, is that the best way to describe it is that we're not meant to we're not meant to be this close.
Right.
It's not my
Yeah.
cup of tea, right? That we're not meant to make a connection in this lifetime, or maybe in any lifetimes until later. So, and that's okay. It's just now a matter of finding my own people. And that's one thing I've learned when I started going through a human design. I learned that for me, in order for me to, the best way to thrive is to build my network, to have my own network and people that I can connect with and contact. And those are the people that are going to help me grow my business, right? Doing ads is not for everyone. It's not meant to be my path, at least not yet, right? Not in the way that of where I'm going. So understanding yourself and all the levels that you can will help you to have a clearer picture of who you want to be, and strive for that every single day, even if it's just a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I have one more poem. I wrote this yesterday, and with what you were saying, I feel like this is going to be a really good one as well. So I'm going to do a bonus one and do a second one. So manifest and pray for your heart's desires. The divine will hear you. Plant your seed, do the work, and grow your garden while trusting the process. What yours will always be yours, and what is meant for you will be for you.
Yeah. So that scarcity mindset of, oh my God, somebody's gonna come in and steal and take it away. This was my idea. They're gonna go create something out of that. It wasn't meant to be yours, right?
Yeah.
Even though the lesson might be sucky or whatever it is that you're going through. I can use a lot of big examples around the world of,
Right.
right? We all can. But at the end of the day, you get to decide you get to write your own story.
Yeah.
And I want you to stop giving the pen to other people who will write your story based on themselves and their experiences and their expectations of you. Like, it would not be who you really are. So you gotta write your own story. Nobody can write it for you.
And that,
yeah.
I
And
was saying, that's the super powerful thing, is when you realize you can write your own story, and you're like, oh, like your mind opens and you're like, whoa, I didn't realize this was a possibility, and it expands your creativity, and it just expands your being to where, and it helps you find who you are and your purpose.
Yeah. And taking care of yourself is a priority, like you said.
Yeah.
Mornings, carve out some time for yourself, because especially as a mom,
Yeah.
always there.
Yeah, I agree with the routines. I have a morning and a night routine. And I remember we had a podcast last year sometimes. And at that time, I didn't have a PM routine. And I was like, okay, I want to make one. And I made one. And now that I have one, it takes like, start with the morning routine, but add a PM routine too. The way you start your day and you end your day. And just watch the magic unfolds.
Yeah. I call them bookends. Bookends of the day and then bookends of your work day. Right? And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. You start small by adding one little thing, and then changing it as we grow. Anyways, I shall go because somebody discovered the unicorn light and probably started looking through things. As always, thank you. You left the remote in the kitchen, dude.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you, Bethany. I feel like today I should thank you for giving me the space to express a lot of these things that were just coming through.
Definitely. Well, there was an even exchange. You know, I had my stuff, you had your stuff, and that's what I like about our partnership, our podcast together, is there's that equal flow.
Yeah. Awesome. Yay. Because I was like feeling, this is where I'm like, I was looking for a little bit of validation, I guess. And we all do this, right? So this is why I'm glad that this is also recorded. People get to witness how we sometimes look for validation where we feel a certain sense of guilt, where I was feeling like, oh my God, I was hogging the whole thing. I was talking so much. And here you go, Yana, yapping away. Like, this is one of my my stories that I've been told, talk too much. And, you know, it's just like preaching and teaching people, right? Stop your preaching. So that's why I kind of mention it in the way. And then I realized, like, oh, see, validation. I'm looking for different things that I'm working on and how they're showing up on my interactions and in my daily life. And then, okay, now that I'm aware of it, it will happen less and less and less, because the more aware of it you are today, you'll be more aware of it tomorrow, and it'll multiply, right? So, and we all look at for validation. And even though there is essentially nothing wrong with it, but what is wrong with it is that we stop giving it to ourselves.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing, is to validate yourself and to know that you have the power to validate yourself.
Yeah,
and it's within. Go within. The answers, a lot of the answers are go within. You know,
exactly.
Yeah.
And another way to reframe it, how I reframe it in my mind, is how Bethany basically answered. Is that it's like we come here, we co-create, we create this baby together, and we birth it together, and it comes out the way that it's meant to, without any self-judgment. Oh my God, like I took too much time, right? And that it happened the way it was meant to happen, and everyone got the information that they needed to get in this current point in time.
Exactly. Right? Everything works out in best case scenario. And that's for any situation.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing your wisdom, knowledge, and experience, especially with the gushing water in the basement.
Yeah.
There are people like, oh my God, that's like my worst nightmare, right? We all have our worst nightmares, and to many of us they're similar, but essentially they are different. Nightmares are the unknowns as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm glad you got that covered,
covered
the water. And not only that, is that you use it as a learning, growing opportunity for yourself, and perhaps even doing the shadow work in there, because you did. And then it's like, oh, right. And then the healing for certain things that we do shadow work on can be a little bit shorter. Depends on how deep it goes.
Yeah, and what other aspects come up with it. Because I've had stuff where, it's with anger. because I was a very angry person once upon a time, and I hid that very well. But coming with anger, compassion, patience, having understanding, expand your perception on things. So it came with all, and I'm still learning more and more that comes with it. And it also helps me understand what anger is and what it's not, and then put the shadow and light together and find your common denominator and your balance with it.
Yeah. And the reason why we continue to relearn essentially the same lessons, but in different ways, is because we ourselves continue to grow and develop. Our consciousness rises every single day. So the concepts that we perhaps did not get 10 years ago, we get now and understand. Like I had a conversation with someone recently. I don't do Bible, I don't read the Bible, but I have read it before, where concepts, like, they're pretty deep, they're very deep concepts that not very many people understand. And even though I am not a church goer, I understand a lot. If I haven't, like I said, I haven't read, so I can't say I understand everything, but everything that I have read so far, I understand those concepts.
Right.
And if I read them 10 years ago, to me, it would be like reading something 100 times over and over again and not understanding a word of what I just read. We've all done that. So that's how it was. It's like gibberish in a Latin language that I don't comprehend. I'm trying to read it, but I don't understand it because it doesn't fit in.
Right.
And that is how we learn as well. The same lesson that we're being taught, we learn it in a deeper way each and every time, because we become a deeper person. So therefore, everything that we learn and continue to relearn, because everything still comes back to oneself, but we continue to relearn everything at a deeper depth each and every time. But at the same time, even though we're going in deeper, it feels like a lot lighter work than initially was. So that's the awesome part of it, is that we start doing the deep work, and it's so uncomfortable, and there's a lot that happens in there, and we often find ourselves not wanting to do it because it's just not comfortable. But the more that we do it, the deeper we go and the easier it becomes, because it also becomes a habit.
Yeah, those healthy coping habits, or like I like to call them the tool or medicine, because a lot of the stuff I've learned from the shadow side has turned in, or the way to work through it has turned into a tool and a medicine.
Yeah, exactly. Right. The way that we express ourselves is also a tool and the medicine. These podcasts are tools and medicines. That's why we're here talking about the quote unquote broken unicorn, right? That there's this narrative out there that you're broken, you need fixing, there's something wrong with you, you need fixing, whether it's pharmaceuticals or or whatever other work that you're going to be doing. But we're not broken. There's nothing wrong with us. The only thing that might be wrong with us is the program that we allow the matrix to upload without knowing that we even had a choice, or that choice being taken away from us based on how we were raised. And now that we're all here, we all get to choose. Now that we're conscious, we now see a choice: red pill or a blue pill.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Right? Only if I had those pills on my head now. Where's the animation when you want it?
Right.
Right.
Well, that's when you use your imagination.
And you can see the red pill and the blue pill. Which one are you going to take?
Yeah.
Right.
Which one?
The choice is yours. I'm pretty sure you figured out which ones we have chosen.
Right. Yeah, well, thank you for these lovely Wednesday talks. And I love how we have the flow, and we just kind of go with the motion and just get into the moment and just let everything that comes to mind, we let it out, and we don't hold back. We express ourselves wholeheartedly. And I love that. Like, we speak so clearly and fluidly. And sometimes we have our moments where we get tongue tied, but then we come up, I feel like, with like a better thought process, or something that's more refined. because so I love it. I'm so grateful for being here, and I'm grateful for everyone watching, and just an amazing conversation today.
And gratitude is very important. So I'm very grateful for you, Bethany, for even having you in my life. Like, dude, we're not even gonna go there right now for the sake of time, because we can, you guys can see this already, but this is how we used to even just having conversations where, okay, bye, we gotta go, and then start again, and another hour and another hour. So I think I should just go, and it's like, let's just say bye, wave, but close our eyes and push the button. But thank you, Bethany. Thank you, everyone. And let's close off with, you like this content, please share with somebody else who you know will benefit from it. Anyone that loves cats that pop into a video randomly, let them come and watch this, because this cat is constantly jumping somewhere, and I'm like, okay. But we do these podcasts every Wednesday. So if you want to watch it live, you can join our Facebook group, Empathy Unicorn Academy. And if you want to watch it on replay, you can watch on a replay in the group as well, or YouTube, which is, you get notified if you subscribe to the channel.
No.
Keywords notified and subscribed at the same time, because I'm like, those are like
right
points. You gotta say subscribe, you gotta say notifications, and then the words come together and the new words become creative. Our kids all do that. Anyways, other than that, thank you everyone. It's 3:00 on the dot. This is nice. And until next week, thank you. Much love.
Sending you all love. Bye.